It's for the kids, and then my job is to babysit their parents. Right?
That's going to be the teaser for this episode. Welcome back to From the Garoffice. My name is Micah Foster, your host, and in this episode, I talked to Jon Silva, a church planter up in Salem, Oregon, who has had to kind of pivot quite a bit to keep reaching people who are far from God in his context. So this conversation is a lot about their response and how they've been able to come up with new ideas of how to reach people that they're trying to reach. I hope you enjoy. So thanks, Jon, for hanging out with me. This is my Garoffice. This is my garage office. This is where I do my videos. Even my messages for Sunday are filmed on a little couch right over there. And then it comes over here to this machine and I edit it together because I'm the guy on the team. So this is my Garoffice. And so I want to thank you for being a part of this podcast. And Jon Silva, just give us a little bit of information, where you're from, what you do.
Yeah, well, I grew up not far from you. I grew up in Modesto, California.
That's right.
Yep. And went to college here in Oregon, and then came back to, it was a middle school teacher in Stockton for about 6.5 years.
Wow.
And yeah, and then felt God saying, hey, you know, you like kids, but you're sick of teaching. Go be a youth pastor.
Of course.
Yeah. So we looked everywhere for a job, my wife Liz and I, and our mentor said, hey, you love Oregon, just look in Oregon. Mm-hmm. And so we found a youth pastor job at a Calvary Chapel here in Salem, Oregon. And about 6.5 years into that, felt the call of it's time to start a church that is primarily focused on reaching people who don't normally go to church. And that's kind of how we met, is that I was just researching this idea of, you know, there's nothing like that around in this town, at least. Mm-hmm. And my dad was a church planter in California in the 80s, and his church was for the unchurched. Right. And so I was just looking around, who else is doing something like this? And I found North Point, and I just reached out to everybody on the West Coast that was a North Point partner.
Right.
And I emailed you, and you said, hey, are you free for I think it was a Skype meeting? And so this is our second online meeting, which is great. And that was just in the very beginning stages of looking at planting a church, and meeting with you and talking to a few other guys made me realize this is possible, right? It's not going to be easy because it's not going to be like everybody else, but we're going to start a church for the unchurched. And so we started Cross Creek. A group of 20 of us named it on April Fool's Day. We named it Cross Creek. And since then, it's been 2.5 years. Since then, we've been having fun. We've been growing. You planted, right?
Right.
And so it's a lonely business, but it's exciting, and we have a great team.
You see how real this is? I've got a delivery truck that just right outside my garage door. This is not a green screen. This is not fake. This is my office.
The church word is authentic.
Yeah, exactly. Then we actually had the opportunity to meet in person. So I was visiting my dad in Dallas, Oregon, which is just a little west of you guys. And you came out there. We met at a Starbucks and had I kind of caught up with what you guys were doing and where you had been and all that kind of stuff. But now, a little bit down the road, everybody's been disrupted. COVID-19 hit, pandemic, you know, you can't have services, all this stuff happened. Right. And so everyone has been trying to, the word right now is pivot. Everyone has been trying to do that. That's the word. And every time I think about that Friends episode with Ross, where he's in the stairwell and he's screaming, trying to get that couch up, that pivot, you know, just every time I'm like, man, I need a GIF of that or a meme to just, that's the moment. Anyway, so you guys have had to do your thing. So what has been your approach to continuing to be the church in the midst of not being able to meet together in person?
So everything kind of hit the fan, and we were a little bit slower than California up here in Oregon to close everything down. But 1 week they said, hey, we're closing things down for any group 250 and over. And we're not there. We probably average about 70 adults. But we said, you know what? There's no way I want my church to be in the news for being the epicenter of an outbreak.
That's right.
and we don't want to endanger our people by saying, hey, no, it's safe. So we canceled our live environment for that. And we set up 3 cameras in the auditorium, and I spoke to the cameras just like, I normally would, because we made that decision on a Wednesday. And so then I'm like, okay, what are we going to do? Like, I was freaking out. I didn't have a lot of trust in that moment. I just didn't know what we're going to do. We're this young church, we're on a shoestring budget. There was no way I was going to just preach in an empty room again, because that just drove me nuts. And so we called an emergency leadership meeting. And probably the best thing I did out of all this, because everything that we do now it all came out of a team. It wasn't me. I'm just the guy on camera. Awesome. But I think the best thing that we did was we took our mission, our vision, and our values, and we just reminded ourselves of who we are and what we do and why we do it and how we do it. And I said, okay, so because our mission is, to lead people in a transforming relationship with Jesus Christ, might sound familiar to you. Mm-hmm. And our vision is to be a church for people who don't normally go to church. With that, what are those people needing? What are they looking for? They're not looking for some guy speaking to an empty room.
Right.
So in light of all of this, what do we do? And through some pretty heavy conversations, some socially distant conversations,
right,
we decided, let's do a kind of a format of a late night talk show, but a YouTube episode. We're not going to do it live, because the people we're trying to minister to and reach, they don't care if you're at, doing your church at 9 a.m. on Sunday morning. They don't care when you're doing it. They want it on demand, just like everything else. So we said, okay, we'll do pre-recorded episodes. And it kind of just went from there. We've been experimenting, and we call it, our motto is always be tweaking, because we're always asking questions. Is this working? Is this the right way to go? And so we've just been tweaking it as we go. Even today, we had our staff meeting, and we decided we've been doing games kind of before the message, just like, a Jimmy Fallon type game or something. And we're realizing, hey, that's kind of making our episodes longer. And then, people have their kids home and they're trying to do school. And so let's keep it shorter. Let's do the game later on in the week, if we're going to do a game, and kind of cut that out and just make it shorter, so people are more willing to watch and hopefully discover God's love for them.
Wow. And so you've been calling it For Salem, like the For Salem show or podcast, or what do you call it?
We don't know what to call it.
It's just the For Salem thing. It's just
the title is Together for Salem.
Right? Okay, got it.
We're all in this together, but we don't know if we call it a podcast or a video cast or whatever. So we just make something up on the fly.
So what are the formats, the mediums in which it's going out? And you said YouTube. Is it going out in any other way?
Yeah, YouTube's our main one. And then we do post it to Facebook. But we just talked about it today. One of the main things with Facebook is it's such a scrolling format. Most people aren't going to scroll and stop and watch it for half an hour. So with Facebook, we're probably getting some 10-second views, which hopefully will then pique interest and take them over to YouTube. But those are our main ones we're using. And then it's on our website, of course.
Right.
But yeah, YouTube, I think, is kind of where we're headed, kind of following the lead of, I think, is it Dave?
Yes. Yeah. Aussie Dave.
Yes, the guy's awesome.
He comes up almost once in every one of these podcasts.
You're gonna have to pay him royalties.
I know, right? Anyway, so have you guys? You're always tweaking, right? And we're doing the same thing from week to week. We're doing a similar thing, but we are doing all the elements really of a regular service, but we're doing it it's truncated. It's like half an hour, but we release it at a certain time, right?
Okay.
So we've been using a program called Ecamm Live, and then also pairing that with Restream, which is a live streaming service, which pushes it out to different various kinds of channels. Yeah. And so we focused in. We tried Twitch for a little bit, right? And that's fine, but nobody cares on there. About what we're doing. I actually in one of these podcasts, I interviewed a guy who's doing like ministry on Twitch, and he's doing a great job. And we're not really.
Is that really Instagram church guy?
No, so that's the guy who's doing it on Instagram.
That guy's amazing.
So yeah, Alex, he's awesome. He's from Fresno. So anyway, so we have been experimenting with different things. Right now, what we're doing is we're premiering. So we're loading it to Facebook and YouTube, and we're premiering it at a certain time. And we did that for the first time this last week. And it was a lot less stressful for me because there's less that can go wrong
Right.
when you do that than when you're pushing it live. Because the week before we had all kinds of technical issues.
And that's something we wanted to avoid
like,
too. Yeah.
Oh man, I was like, I'm sorry. Like eventually I had to restart the stream like 3 times the week before.
Yep.
And eventually I just said in the chat, I'm sorry guys, I'm going to have to load this on YouTube. Watch your email. You know, it was like,
Yeah.
I can't keep doing
Well,
this.
that was another thing for us. Most churches around here, they're great churches. They're not going to watch this. So they're designed for church people. And so they're all going live at the exact same time on Sunday morning, doing things they've always done, competing with each other, basically, because we're now all in the same space. So, you know what? We don't need to compete with them. There is no competition. The people we're reaching are not going to church anyway.
Right.
So let's just do it. Let's not worry about people's bandwidth going out and things messing up. Let's just pre-record it and launch it on Saturday instead of Sunday, because that gives people the weekend to figure out when they want to watch it. And we're actually seeing a lot of watching on Monday.
Like, is there a specific time on Monday?
Evening. I think they're like, oh my gosh, I got another week of this. So I need some Jesus.
I need some good news.
Right.
From Jon Silva. Does any of this affect you moving forward in your next phases, or whenever you can meet together in person or whatever? There's a lot of people doing phasing in, like.
Right. Yeah. In Oregon, it's probably they're doing it by county, and Marion County, which is what Salem is in, is one of the bigger counties. And so we're one of 3 that aren't in phase 1 right now. We're still in like lockdown mode, but phase 1 is 10 people or less. And so they're going to phase it up. And so we're looking at what does this look like in each phase? And so what we're realizing is the online thing we're doing, it's going to keep going for, who knows, probably at least till September. Because we're not willing to meet live if it's not safe and if it's not quality. Like having people sit 6 feet apart with masks on just so they can be, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So one of our values is authentic excellence. And if we can't be authentically excellent, we're not going to do it. So we're looking at what does this look like for our small groups? And so we're kicking around ideas. It's probably going to be, we're still going to make our episodes and then have people sit in their living rooms together and watch the episode and then discuss it and just kind of get back to having life together.
That could be phase 1 for you guys. Right. Do you have an idea or a thought post that, what there might come next, what might be next?
We're kicking that around. For me right now, we're going to have our leadership meeting this week. So I don't make all the decisions because that would be terrible. But probably right now, we're going to probably stick with this, focusing on the small group episode idea until we can really just go back to the live environment. And even when we go back to live, I think the feeling is we're going to keep doing the episodes because it's the new front door, as everybody's been saying.
Yeah. So let's talk about that.
So why not? Yeah.
I mean, the new front door. All right. So that's a term I've heard as well. And so in the model that you and I have kind of aligned ourselves with, the front door, the entryway, the foyer environment has been the Sunday morning service, right? That's the model we've been a part of. But in this time, we've seen maybe I've heard this phrase in the past, a pre-foyer environment, a porch environment, or a curbside environment. I don't know what you just extend the metaphor. But how have you guys seen this to work for people who are your target audience, who are not typically church people, who don't typically engage that way? What kinds of things? Is there a story you can point to? Are there names you're connecting with now?
Well, so pre-COVID, we still were very intentional with our online presence, and that being our entry point. We're a church for people who don't normally go to church. What we're seeing is a lot of de-churched people.
Yeah.
So not people who don't have any experience with church, but people who've been burned by church and are literally scared to walk through the doors. And so we have some people who've watched for months, and then they finally have the courage. And I invite them every week and say, hey, if you're watching online, we'd love to meet you in person someday when you're comfortable. And so we have people who watch for months and then come in. and we get to know them, and they're already ready, and they kind of know us. And
Right.
so it's always been our porch is our online environment, but now it's even more so. People who would never even watch because we would just, I'd have a pre-recorded welcome thing, which we learned from Connexus up in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say, hey, welcome to Cross Creek Online or On Demand. Glad you're here. I'm John, da, 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 da. And so we had that, and then we just throw up my sermon.
Right.
And so now that it's so much different, we've had people who would never watch that, never go to our website to watch that, actually engaging. People who like are anti-church
Mm-hmm.
we're in their meeting place now, and if they're a little bit interested, or their friend shares something, they're
Right.
willing now, because it's safe. I can't get you through the screen.
Right.
So
Right. I can disengage as quick as I want.
right,
I'm not
click.
I'm not confined in a space. It's not awkward if I get up and walk out. I can just watch for a few minutes, and if I like it, I can say I like it and move on, or I can
Right.
come back later and watch more. So yeah, there's a lot more anonymity in that. What's really interesting to me is seeing, like, because we kind of go live at a certain point, or we premiere at a certain time, right? Which is 10:30, which was our original service time. And so what's interesting to me is to watch the names in the chat pop up that are not a part of our church, but that I'm friends with on Facebook, or we have mutual friends, and so I'll see it, and I'm like, you know what? They don't realize I can see their name right now popping up. And it's really funny because sometimes you can tell right away they like get out, because it's like, oh no, I'm exposed. My name popped up.
Yeah.
And I've seen people, welcome people in the chat that are friends of theirs that I don't see their name pop up because I'm not friends with them. So it's a really interesting dynamic to see that. But I love seeing that and seeing other people say, hey, so good to see you, and I'm like, who? What are you talking about? I don't know who that is. So I love that.
And see, that was the toss up for us with either going live or not, because not going live, they can stay anonymous, and we don't have anybody who can say, hey, how's it going? And so I'm personally still debating, is live better or not? I'm going with the wisdom of our team, that with the people we're trying to reach, they want anonymous, and they'll reach out when they're ready, which we're finally starting to see. It's kind of like we're that flywheel in Good to Great. I don't know if you read that, but we're slowly pushing, and now we're finally starting to see people trust us and say, you know what, I do exist, and I have been watching. So that's exciting.
Yeah, we've seen some of that same stuff happen for us. The majority of the people who would have already been coming to our church services, they watch mostly when it's broadcast. So there is that community happening in the chat. That's and cool. We encourage it, and we're like, type in the chat if, answer this or whatever, tell us. We try to do that, create community, but it also primes the algorithm to push it more, because there's interaction. Yeah. And then people who maybe wouldn't be involved in that, they'll watch it later because it stays up.
Yeah.
So they watch the replay, they'll watch it later. And then we really saw a need for our kids in trying to resource our parents, right? So what's been great is the Rethink group, who puts out all the orange curriculum. They've been producing these basically episodes for our 2 kids environments. We call it Wombland and Upstreet.
Right.
So our preschool environment, we kind of premiere that Wombland large group stuff, which includes a host, a song, a story, the host again, another song. Like, it's a whole thing. It's like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And so we premiere that and encourage our families who have those age groups to watch that time. So at 9:30, we have Wombland. At 10, we have Upstreet. At 10:30, we have our adult service. And then at 11:30, I'm rebroadcasting our adult service on Instagram Live. So it's like a whole Sunday morning of, broadcasting and interacting with people. And then this last weekend, I tried something new. There was an experiment right after the adult service, and before I went on to Instagram Live, I created a Facebook Messenger room.
Yeah.
The video chat room now that Facebook has put out and created, which is the answer to Zoom and all these other things that they just want to sustain Facebook forever. So And I made it available to anyone who's a part of a private Facebook group that we have
Okay,
for
that's smart.
Two Cities Church Family.
Yeah.
So, so if we have new people, which I have DMs with and stuff, I encourage them, hey, go join that group. You just hang out and kind of watch community. And if you want to interact. And so on Sunday, I didn't tell anyone I was going to do this. Right after the service was done, I started a group up, and like 4 people popped in. They're like, what is this? I don't even know. I never heard of this. And so we just chatted for a few minutes, and I was like, yeah, this is our virtual lobby. Come hang out with me after service next week. So I'm just trying to create some of those little opportunities for connection.
You're doing a lot. Is that all you? Are you the one
Dude,
doing all that?
it's all from my Garoffice. I'm telling you.
Gosh.
It is all from my Garoffice.
How tired are you? You're kind of, you got energy. You're one of those.
Yeah. Right? I mean, we got a lot going on, right? We got 3 kids, distance learning. My wife works full-time plus some. I work full-time plus some. We have a digital virtual assistant agency we run on the side. It's like a boutique agency. We just have a few clients, a few virtual assistants. So like yesterday, for instance, Monday, I'm with the kids from, wake up till 1 p.m., helping them do their schoolwork, breakfast, lunch, all that.
Yeah.
My wife's working. We switch, right? So then I have 1 to 5 and then I'm off at 5. And so yesterday, my whole day was Zoom meetings with people for Dream Support, which is our virtual assistant agency. So then today, I'm working on podcast stuff.
Right.
And tomorrow I'll be working on message stuff and service stuff. It's just, it's a whole thing. And then last night we have a team meeting through Zoom on Monday nights during this time. And I have a small group on Thursday nights through Zoom. So there's a lot of stuff going on, but I don't know. You just gotta do what you gotta do.
You made me tired just listening to that.
Well, the one good thing that I did right before all of this, and I'm so glad I did, oh my goodness, was I went out and I bought myself a new Mac, because my old one was a Mac Mini. The old one was the church's. It was an old Mac Mini that we were using. And I went out and bought my own personal iMac that's brand new, because I knew I was going to be doing a bunch of editing. I knew I needed to be like a lot faster than I was frustrated with the old machine. So it's, I'm so glad that I did that. That's awesome. Before all this, because that would have been so rough. But the thing I've noticed, because I just went back and I watched one of your episodes. The thing that I noticed, and you mentioned the games.
Yeah.
The thing I noticed was there's no music.
No.
So tell me about that decision, and tell me about how you guys came to that.
It kind of goes back to that authentic excellence thing with us. A young church, not a lot of money just to go buy great equipment. And so any recording was going to be not that great, especially if we did it live. And again, the people that we're primarily making this episode for, they don't care. We decided to take our music and call it house sessions, and just have members of our band, our leaders, record songs in their home. And then we launched that as a separate,
a standalone.
Yeah, a standalone during the week. And so I feel like that's been fun, because we can highlight our musicians who are, we don't deserve to have the musicians we have. They're so good. And so highlight them and have this special time with them, but then also it's still a comfortable environment for the unchurched to watch our episodes and not feel like, well, they're kind of just looking in on this church service that isn't really for them.
Sure. Interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting. We kind of went the other way. We went like, hey, we got great musicians. We're doing living room recordings basically.
Right.
And we've done 2 recording sessions with just like this kind of gear. Right. So this kind of gear and this kind of gear, and also this kind of gear. Right. So, which is just 3 band members and then me and all the cameras I could find, and just set up multi-angle, right? And try to create different audio sources with different things. And then put it all together and put together, 2 or 3 song sets for each service out of those. So I'll pick and choose between the songs. And then on Wednesdays, we release one song alone, just as like a worship Wednesday. Hey, be encouraged by this. This is the message of this song. And so what's end up happening is we have like this service on Sundays that we put out.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have these different elements that we just push out as standalone things during the week.
Right.
So if we do like we did a Mother's Day thing where I had people send me cell phone videos of them reciting a couple lines from a poem, and then we put it together with music and stuff. Cool. It was only like a minute and a half, right? The whole thing. Right. But it highlighted a bunch of different people, a bunch of different faces. And then we could, later that day, it was a standalone, like, hey, if you missed it, go watch this. We put it on Instagram, so we're trying to reuse the content.
Mm-hmm.
We're spending so much time trying to create so that it has a shelf
right.
life.
It's kind of sad to just do a one-shot thing and put all that work into it and say, okay, and 50 people saw it. Great.
Right. Exactly. And
give it some legs.
That's the thing. And we put out a survey. Interesting thing.
Yep. That's what we did. Survey was one of the smart things we did too.
So what did you find from your survey, or what were some of the questions that you asked?
We went through each element that we had in our episodes and said, has this been helpful or entertaining? And going back to the game, people were like, yeah, that's cool. And some people were like, get rid of the games, because they just wanted to scroll through it and get to the good stuff, I guess. Even though we saw, the first few episodes, our viewership was here. And then when we got to me,
and
it came back, because we're doing giveaways at the end too. So
I think that's pretty standard.
Yeah, I would think so.
It's just,
I didn't take it personally.
Yeah. I think just that whole, like, okay, now I'm going to watch a guy talk, and we try to do what we can do, we put the graphics up, or we make jokes or whatever. We try to, but still, it's just not as entertaining most of the time.
Right.
Because we're not Seinfeld or Stanley.
Working on it. So with the survey, we just asked different elements. Is this helpful? What are you getting out of it? Made the survey really easy. So just, click a number, not write a paragraph response for each question. And it was actually really encouraging. Our older audience asked, one lady said, email it to me. Having to go find it on YouTube's and the Facebooks doesn't work for me. Just email it to me. Why aren't we utilizing our email list? And so now we're sending it out to more people, getting people to open it and watch it. And so just hearing from people. We're probably going to do another survey just because we're now further into it, and say, where are you? Like, what's going on in your life?
Right.
Where do you need help? We want to help. What can we do?
Right. That's kind of so Sunday I put out a survey, and I haven't even like emailed it to our whole list yet. But there's been about 20 responses so far, which is good. And it was more about like, how are you doing really?
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, before this thing hit, where would you rate yourself in terms of like your mental health, right? On a 0 to 10 scale.
Yeah. So you cared about the people, and we just cared about our episode. That's good.
It took us a while to get here. So then it was like, follow-up question was, how would you rate yourself today? And so it was really interesting to see that. And it's totally anonymous. So they can be totally anonymous with it, unless they self-reveal who they are by saying a name and an answer later or something. But it's interesting to see how many people were like 8s and 9s before this.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't think we had any 10s. Like, I was like a superstar mental health person before this, but they kind of slid down a little bit. The second question, someone actually said, I'm a 10 now. So I was a a 7 or whatever. And now I'm a 10.
Yeah.
And so that's really interesting too, to kind of see the positive effects of that on some people's mental health. But I think it really depends on your environment and where
somebody must have hated their job, and they're like, yes, I don't have to go anymore.
Exactly. Or what kind of living environment you're in, or if I were in Oregon and it was raining a lot, my mental health would be lower. So anyway, so it's just really interesting to see those things, and then asking, is there anything else we can do? Do you feel supported by the church? And it's encouraging to get those notes and encouragements from people. Yeah, you guys are doing great. Just keep popping up in my feed was one.
That's cool. That's encouraging. They want to
I
see
look
you.
forward to this. I look forward to seeing stuff from the church. It's like the highlight of my week or whatever. So I really enjoy
That's super encouraging.
Hearing those things, because
Yeah.
it matters. And even I'm really surprised by some people who were like super involved and always there. And I never hear from them unless I call them or text them. Like I never see them on anything, or they're never watching with us. They're never engaging with anything. There's like, they're nowhere to be found. And then, I'll call them or I'll text them, hey, how you doing? And they'll be like, oh, I'm good. I'm fine. I'm like, have you been joining us or watching along? They're like, oh no, I really haven't been doing that recently. I'm
See,
like,
I'm wondering
okay,
that, because I was kind of
okay.
thinking about that the other day. Do they just need a break? Have we been kind of pushing them a little harder than we should have? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't have to go. I'm not needed. I got a Sunday off,
No, yeah. And I think there's something to that. I think there's something to that break for our core team.
Mm-hmm.
We go pretty hard. Our core
Right.
team goes pretty hard. Set up and tear down. And it's not like a quick and easy setup and tear down. Like we try to create an environment and everything. And we've even toned it way back from what we used to do, but still have a high impact. But there are certain people on our team who have been doing that since we started. And so they're like, I'm tired of doing that, and I get it. I get it.
Yep.
I'm there, when we were doing live services, in-person services, I left the house at 6:30, and I didn't get home till 2:30.
This was the first Mother's Day that
Exactly.
my wife's been a mother that I was home the whole time.
Exactly. I mean, I ordered breakfast from the best place.
Yep.
We had a giant spread. It was great. I was like, this is so great to have Mother's Day.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened to
actually
ever.
Do what she deserves. Right.
Ever.
Exactly.
Because I've always been in ministry
day.
since we've been married and since she's been a mother. And I've always been, for that entire time, I've been in charge of a lot of things that had to happen on Sunday morning. So I could never be there to celebrate Mother's Day that morning. Whereas a bunch of other people in the church didn't come to church that day because they had brunch with grandma and mom and sister or whoever else.
Those ministry wives are amazing.
They really are. They really are. So tell me about your family.
They're awesome.
Okay, cool. So I see some pictures behind you.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Those are,
so you got your wife, you got,
we have 3 kids.
Okay.
Yep. So I have, there's Danny right now. He's 7. There's Quinn. She's 4. And there's crazy Benji. He's 5.
There you go.
So a first grader, a preschooler, and a no schooler. And so that's kind of been the hard part and the awesome part of this quarantine thing is having everybody, because I'm working from home, having everybody in the same house at the same time is crazy.
Yeah.
You mentioned it's Oregon, so it rains a lot. We can't get out that much. And so they're kind of all cooped up. But I moved, we discovered my oldest is just very introverted and wants to be independent. And so we kind of he was with his brother. They're sharing, we have 3 bedrooms. So the boys are in a room and the girl was in her own room. Well, we switched it. We put the oldest in the girl's room, the girl with the other boy. And that's been great. And then we moved his desk into my bedroom, which is my office. And so I'm typing away on my message and he's doing his little math homework and stuff. And I look over and he's doing something. It's been great. So it's like the whole spectrum of getting to be with my kids more, take a break, go throw some pitches for them. And then I'm trying to write this really deep, life-changing sermon, and they're screaming at me about some show or something,
Really brings some perspective. I mean, when Paul was writing the letters to the churches in the New Testament, and when he was like from prison, think about that.
Right.
Here's 2 of mine.
Exactly.
Speaking of
Perfect.
kids, they come in right at the right spot. This is my youngest, Eli.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
He's gonna turn. What are you gonna turn?
6.
At the end of the month, and my daughter's over here hiding, and she's gonna turn 8 at the end of the month. So
you're smart. 2 kids is the way to go, man.
I have another one.
Oh, well then
he's
you're
10.
in the same boat as me.
He's 10. So yeah. Bye-bye.
That's awesome.
Bye. right on cue.
Yeah, that was perfect. You must have planned that. But yeah, just having that intersection of now it's not, you used to have work and home and you could just go away and now it's all together, which is great. My kids think I'm famous because I'm now on YouTube.
Right.
So, and they get to see behind the scenes.
We've been doing YouTube videos for a couple of years now, just like on our own. Like we started out with just like family vacation highlights and things like that. And then I started doing some different ministry type videos and so we've been experimenting with that stuff for a while. And my son now, he's got his own channel and he likes to he just shows off like here's my Legos and here's and
we have the same thing. My kids do Lego battles and I have to film it for half an hour and then load it up to YouTube. And
well, finally that old Mac Mini, right? I cleared it off and I reinstalled everything. I bought it from the church and then I gave it to my son and said, here,
genius,
use iMovie. So
you might've started a whole new career for him. You don't know.
He's got a schedule. He's like, my videos come out on Wednesday. And so he's in there editing videos, but they're really funny. They're like the up the nose shots. And the other day he said something like, yeah, I posted a video last week. No one's watched it. I said, doesn't matter. Did you have fun doing it? I don't care if anybody watched it. Did you have fun doing it? Did you feel creative? Did you feel like you learned something? Great. Who cares if someone watched it?
Well, in these show notes, you should put it on there so we can all subscribe to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's already is. I think I have it down there anyways. I think my daughter had one too. She's got like 5 videos on there. Anyways, it's just kind of fun. They really like that stuff. And it's really a generation of kids who are doing that and enjoy doing that, which has its pluses and minuses, depends on their motivations and why, and what are they hoping to get from it. Or, my hope is always to provide value for other people and it's not to get something. So, I could have just a few people watch this, but it's going to end up being 45 minutes or an hour and those few people are going to get a ton of value out of it. And so great.
That's
that's
the way to do it. I mean, especially with church stuff, right?
Yep.
You don't know you can't change everybody's life, but you can change somebody's life.
Exactly.
Or be used to change somebody's life.
Right. So like even like the experiment I was doing with rebroadcasting through Instagram Live, right? So showing a 35-minute service that's a lot for an Instagram Live.
Yeah.
And it was kind of an experiment. And I was like, I don't know. And this past weekend, I was like, I'm going to give it maybe 1 or 2 more times before I evaluate if it's worth it. Because, I got to manage it and monitor it and interact with people on it. So it's another thing.
More hours. Yeah.
So, so this past Sunday, I was like, okay, this is something, because we actually had some direct messages about prayer. We actually had like first time giver come through there. We actually had
awesome.
Someone who moved away from the church watched, there's a few people who watched the entire thing on Instagram Live, which I was surprised by. Usually it's a pop in and out audience.
Right. But you had them watch the whole thing and engage.
Yes. And so I was like, okay, let's keep doing this. And we may make some adjustments, but let's keep doing this and see what happens. And that's what the whole episode with Alex Dion Wilson was about, Instagram, Insta Church Live and everything that they're doing on there. So I'm just encouraged by people who are pushing the envelope in these different ways to see what's up. So for us, the big question is, how are we going to incorporate what we're learning now into the post-pandemic normal, whatever that is? When we can, assumingly, when we can finally meet in person without having a bunch of provisions, without having to do masks and 6 feet. And the biggest thing for us is children's ministry. When we can actually have children's ministry, like we don't feel like we should be having service in person unless we can have children's ministry.
Well, the reason we can do the online stuff for adults all day long forever, but that's our challenge is the kids. And they need they need face-to-face. They need to run around and know that there's other adults who love them and will tell them Jesus loves them. Right. And so I keep telling our team, church would be so easy if it weren't for kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Because really, the live service in my mind is it's for the kids, and then my job is to babysit their parents. Right?
That's going to be the teaser for this episode.
But if the parents are having a great time and the kids are bored and hate going, they're going to stop coming.
Right.
But if the kids are having a great time and I can kind of keep the parents' attention, they're going to keep coming.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's really what the challenge has been this whole time, is like, how do we continue to provide a growing environment or experience for kids during this time? And I've been encouraging parents. I'm like, hey, listen, parents, you're the small group leader for your kids right now. So use the resources, please. You know, it's kind of like just begging them, like, it's right there. Come on, like, grab a hold of it and use it on purpose. Don't just let this time go by. We want to see your kids grow in this time. And it's a great opportunity for them to grow. And the way that you respond is going to tell a lot. It's going to inform them a lot on the authenticity of your faith. And
that's great. I'm going to steal that. That's awesome.
You should do it. You should
do it. That's what I'm good at.
Steal it all. That's what we do. We beg, borrow, and steal, right? That's
and adapt it.
Yes. Hey, it's been we've been at this for almost an hour, and I don't want to take up your entire day. I loved it. Love the conversation. Love hanging out with you, learning what you're doing, learning from what you guys are doing. I really love the late night kind of show idea.
We're having fun. Yeah.
And you know that, because we're talking about how do we continue to have an online presence that is similar to what we're doing now, but doesn't take as much time as it is right now, because we're going to be doing in-person things as well.
Exactly.
So how do we have a dual model here? How do we have a two-prong approach
when it's just you doing it?
Yes. And I
if
can't
you could hire somebody.
I can't do what I'm doing now and do what I've got to do when we're doing in-service stuff, in-person stuff. I always say in-person because people say when we do church, I'm like, that's not, you can't stop, you know? So people get mad at me about that too.
Yeah.
But I think that something like that late night show idea could be a great adaptation that would allow us to continue to have a good presence online.
It's fun. And it is a lot of work. Like I don't do the editing. We have our host, Monica. She's basically carrying the church right now.
Wow.
And
awesome.
She's part-time too, but she works more than full-time. So it's a lot of work. And so we're trying to figure out how do we keep that going and keep, our outreach going, but still provide a in-person environment. So
provide the environment for the kids where you babysit.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Well, she's also the lady, Monica, she's our children's director as well. So
there you go.
A lot on her plate.
Yes. Yep. And our children's director is very part-time as well. And she's the one who gets those videos for our Womberland and Upstreet and gets them to me and make sure. And it's awesome to see those people stepping into kind of outside the line roles for what,
right. And just
what they're originally doing.
Seeing it's all about the mission and not just the job description.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me, Jon. Really appreciate you. Appreciate your time. Is there anything, where can we find you, website or whatever?
yourcrosscreek.com.
Awesome.
And it's throughout social media, it's your Cross Creek, at your Cross Creek, because we're for you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks,
Micah.
man.
This was fun, man. Appreciate it.
We'll talk later.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. So bonus content. We forgot to talk about this idea of pub church, which you guys have been kicking around. So tell me, and it's not anything, you haven't even said you're doing it. You're just kicking around an idea.
This is like inner circle discussing, wouldn't it be great if type stuff.
So tell me about pub church.
Yeah. Well, we're Pacific Northwest, so microbreweries and all that kind of thing. So anyway, we've kicked around the idea of having different local breweries donate beer for our services, because we meet Sunday evenings, and churches usually do coffee for Sunday mornings because that's hospitality. When somebody comes to your house, you serve them coffee. Well, up here in the evening, if somebody comes to your house in the evening, what do you offer them? You offer them your latest microbrew. So we've kicked that idea around, but there's a lot of rules with alcohol and gatherings, and there's kids involved and stuff. So gotta be careful. But this idea, since we're doing the YouTube episodes, what if we, found a pub or turned something into a pub style and showed the episode and then just had discussions about it over pub tables and just had pub church, where, the whole C.S. Lewis, J.R. Tolkien thing of sharing a pint and talking theology. And
Right.
what a great, I mean, if your unchurched friend says, "Hey, you want to come to my worship service with me?" No.
Right.
Hey, you
Right.
want to come have a beer and we'll talk about, some life issues? Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
there. Right. So it's kind of the idea. Again, the problem is, what are we going to do with the kids?
Right. It's almost it's almost has to be an add
Right.
to
Like
instead of a replacement for.
or like a separate campus idea almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We have some people up here. They're part of different churches, right? And a good friend of mine, Paul, who's a part of our church, likes to be a part of this, and it's called Beer and Jesus. And they've only done it a few times, but the idea is they go to a different brewery, and then they try different beer, and then they have conversations about Jesus. I've never been. I don't know how formal it is. I personally don't like beer, so that's like I'm like, I would be so.
Well,
I wouldn't
still
even be
friends. It's okay.
I wouldn't even be there. People would be like, "What's wrong with you? You don't like beer?" So
they'd feel judged.
Yeah, I would feel so judged. Try this. Oh, this is gross. So it doesn't really fit me for my personality, but for some people, it's like, yeah, that's super exciting, and I can see that.
I mean, this whole thing of people wanting to connect, and the whole idea of circles are better than rows thing.
Right.
If circles are better than rows, then maybe we need to rethink doing rows.
Right.
And so, I mean, that's way out there, and I share that with people, and they get pretty scared and deer in the headlights type thing of, what, we can't go to, you can still go to church, but
right.
Maybe we'll get real connection if we're smaller and more.
Well, it's like you're trying to figure out that bridge between, or that idea between, people, because some people go all the way house church, right?
Right.
Which then becomes very insider focused,
very insider and cultish.
I don't have
sometimes.
I know people who are part of house churches that are great. I mean, Francis Chan figured out a way to do house church that sounds really attractive to a lot of people. So so there's that.
I'm not him.
But when you think about kind of that extreme versus the in-person services, it's really hard to break in, I think, from the outside. You got to really want to get in.
And we're trying to remove every obstacle possible, right?
So somewhere between where you have the intimacy or the personal nature of that gathering, but it's not quite as formal as the rows and allows for more personality and more conversation. There's something interesting about that. And man, we're talking about shifts in how people do church for generations, and that is a very scary proposition for people.
Right.
And people can get very angry about those conversations.
Feel threatened, and there's no security. There's no safety net.
But our security is not in our tradition.
Right.
It's in our Savior.
Right.
And he's shown up in lots of ways that have been unexpected. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Exactly. I mean, picture those early disciples, those Jewish boys no longer having the temple, and what the heck, right? And they had to just follow Jesus.
Yeah.
With no the Bible to turn to yet.
Yeah, with no the Bible. People, that's another thing that really throws people off. When you talk about how...
Oh, man, we could talk for hours now.
No, Paul wasn't writing the Bible. He was writing a letter. Anyway. Well, man, thanks again. Really appreciate it.
You.
We'll talk again. Let's keep in touch. I'll let you know when this goes out.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks, man.
All right. Thanks, man. Well, I hope that you enjoyed that conversation. I know that I did. And I hope that you were inspired to think a little bit differently about how the church can move forward beyond this pandemic. It may go back to normal, but it may also look a little bit different. And I hope, however it looks different, is for the better. If you enjoy this content, please subscribe. Please share this with other people. And I hope to see you in the next one. God bless.